Welcome to FEHS Legacy Voices, the podcast where today we will celebrate the people who have shaped the history and spirit of Fuquay Consolidated High School. Today, we're joined by William Harris, a proud member of the class of 1969. Since graduation, he has gone to serve as commissioner and elected as the current mayor of our town, continuing the legacy of excellence and began right here in Fuquay Arena. We're excited to revisit school memories and hear how their journey has shaped both their life and our community. The first question is, what path did you take after graduation?
After graduating, I graduated in May of June of 1969. Graduated on a Sunday and started to work on the Monday because I wanted to have enough money to go to college. At that particular time, I knew I was going to go to college, but I didn't have enough money to do that. So that Monday, I started a job washing cars at the local auto deal. At that time, it was called Mitchell Chevrolet. So I started washing cars there and did that the entire summer. And then in August, I was in the marching band, so I had to go to school early. And so that August, I started my career as far as education is concerned at North Carolina Central. So after high school, I started the college.
It's amazing. And what accomplishment are you most proud of?
After high school, I think the proudest accomplishment that I have can remember and I really cherish is the fact that I'm the first generation in my family to go to college and to graduate from college and to eventually receive a master's degree. So that accomplishment for me has set the stage and the foundation for my entire life in regards to being tenacious enough to go through college, graduate in 4 years, and then follow up years later to get my master's degree.
That's amazing. I'm glad to hear that. You should be proud of that accomplishment.
Thank you.
And was there a turning point in your career or education?
Yes, the turning point, really, I think the most significant turning point in my life was when I was playing music and I was married and I thought I was going to have a career performing. And I was traveling with a band. We were in New York City. We had performed in New York City. We were trying to get a record contract. And we were downtown New York, and our manager was successful to get us the contract. And we went through the process of all the requirements for the contract. And at that particular point, I was married at that time, and I had to make a decision whether I was going to be with my children or be traveling all over the country. And so I made that decision to forego any other pursuits in my music career and came back to Fuquay Arena and started working in the community. Eventually became president of the PTA. I got active in my church. I got active in other areas. I got appointed to the Fuquay Arena town board as a commissioner. And here I am as your mayor.
I mean, it sounds like a wonderful story. I'm sure that was a hard decision for you to make. Were you passionate about playing the instrument?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I had started playing music, of course, in high school and played all through college. And during that time was performing around not only North Carolina, but up and down the East Coast. And of course, it was fun, and you get a chance to express your talent, and all of those kinds of things were going on. But that decision was it was not a hard decision, but it was a decision that I didn't think I would ever have to make. And I think at any point in life, you do have to make those kinds of decisions that are very crucial to where you will end up in life as far as what your destiny is concerned. Yeah. So So I did that and have no regrets.
I love to hear that. And what was one favorite or funny memory from high school that you've had?
Good gracious. We had so much fun when I was in high school. And when I reviewed that, I was trying to think of how I could just uh, remember one specific memory that would stand out beyond all the others. And I'm trying to remember because I thought about that. I said, what can I say as far as this? Does this memory have to be a funny memory or something like that? Or
It could be a favorite memory that you have or just an overall highlight memory.
uh, I think the highlight memory for me in high school was when I was asked to speak to the junior class. We had a teacher, in fact, who used to teach here, Miss Betty Rush. She had a particular program for the school, and she invited me to speak as a, believe it or not, as a senator. She gave me a role to play, and I had to deliver the remarks of the speech at that time. And I always reflect on that. I said, "Gosh, was that destiny?"
Okay.
Because that speech, I felt like I was very comfortable presenting before the people, and the speech was based on the life of Senator Edward Brooks at that time, who was one of the first African American senators in the United States. So that was pretty significant, I think.
Mm, I believe so. Honestly, I feel like that definitely is a great highlight, I would say.
Nice.
And was there a teacher or a class or activity that shaped you besides that moment?
Many teachers shaped me. I mean,
Really?
yeah, there were so many. Of course, I just named Miss Rush, Betty Rush, who used to work here. But my seventh grade teacher, Miss Burtsell, Miss Burtsell was probably the first one teacher that instilled in me to achieve excellence and not just do enough to get by. Because sometimes in school, or I know in school for me, just getting by, I thought that's as long as I made B's and C's, I was okay. Because
Right.
that was a good showing that I was in school. But Miss Birdsell inspired me to achieve excellence. She just would not settle for a B. She kept telling me that I could do more, I could be more. And out of that process, my image changed from settling for mediocrity to pursuing excellence. So Miss Bursell was very important. There was another teacher, Mr. William Boney, who inspired me to go to college because, as I was telling you earlier, being the first in my family to go to college for me was so far off because college to me in my mind involved money. It involved things that my family just didn't necessarily have. And Mr. Boney, who was my band director, he uh, took off work from school and literally took me to North Carolina Central University and introduced me to the band director. And he introduced me to the band director, and the band director helped me to get into North Carolina Central. And I'm always indebted to Mr. Boney for what he did for me because that was significant. Then after I got in school, he would come to visit me to further encourage me to stay in school. So Miss Bursell, Mr. Boney, um, Miss Rush, all of those three instructors were among so many others who were very significant and impactful for my direction in life. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm glad that he did follow up with you and encourage you to stay in college. That's really great.
Yeah, he did. And it was amazing because going to college from a small town, college was considered something big for me. I was in the marching band, so I had support. But when he came and when he continued to give me encouragement it was just an inspiration to continue on.
Yep. That's amazing. And how has any way has Fuquay changed or possibly stayed the same since your time here?
Since my time here, like in school,
Yes, sir.
oh, good gracious, Fuquay has changed tremendously because during the time that I was in school, i- keep in mind we were coming off of the civil rights movement. We were coming off a very tumultuous time here in the country. The civil rights movement was challenging the social consciousness of America. The United States had put a man on the moon. So there was a lot of different things at that time that was impacting uh, what Fuquay was. Fuquay at that time was still a southern town. It still had some of the trappings of Jim Crow. There was still this idea of two separate societies, a segregated society. So when I graduated from school, Fuquay was still operating under the old Jim Crow laws because schools were not integrated. Black children went here and white children went here. You still went in the in the back door, and there were still separate facilities still here in Fuquay. But if you look today, of course, you don't see any of that, and that's just representative of the process of change and the progress that has occurred based on the sacrifices of those who came before us. So that's why, as mayor, I feel like where I am now, I rest on the shoulders of those who have gone before me, who have sacrificed so much, and believing in the idea that America that could accept us African Americans as first class citizens. And I think that's been part of the transition of Fuquay. Doors have opened. Fuquay is no longer that southern town like that. It's a representative of the efforts of those who have gone before us to have a new, more inclusive society than the society that I grew up in.
Right.
Mhm.
Now, moving on, we'll be talking about community and civic impact.
Okay.
How are you involved in your community and what has inspired you to give back or get involved?
As I was telling you earlier, prior to my making that decision I made, I was involved in the community, but primarily through the church. I was teaching Sunday school and I was doing those kinds of things, which I thought was the best thing to do. But then eventually I became involved with PTA because my children were involved. And I became a member of the Fuquay Arena Education Council, which is a council that looked at education in Fuquay Arena. And I then became involved in my Masonic Lodge and other community projects that were happening at that time. And that caused someone to notice me when um, the first commissioner, first African American commissioner here, whose name was William Freeman, who's a former principal of Fuquay Consolidated. He was a commissioner first before me. He got elected to the state house. And when he got elected to the state house, they chose me to take his place as commissioner. So that's how I got involved in politics. I was appointed to take his seat. So that was the beginning of an expansion of my community involvement. That not only was I still active in the church and doing other things, but now I was an elected official. And when you become an elected official, I mean, you are really in the midst of being able to have an impact to change your community. So I would say by me being commissioner, that was one of the things that led to greater civic involvement.
And how do you see the values or lessons you've learned from Fuquay High School reflected in your own community and civic leadership today?
One of the things that we were taught at Fuquay Consolidated that was sort of drilled into us was the importance of education, one, and the importance of being able to give back to your community.
Mhm.
And I think that those two things are foundational because you're looking at service, being able to give back to the community based on what you have gathered or learned. And I think that that's so important in the educational process, and especially during the time that I came along, we were taught to support each other and taught to give back to each other, and that whatever we did, we not only represented it ourselves, but we represented other people.
Right.
And so I think that those kind of significant things have been inspirational to me to have that commitment to continue to be involved in the community, to try to do those things to impact other people's lives.
And have you seen a major impact in your involvement in the community?
Yeah, yeah, a couple of good things have happened. One of the things that I'm most proud of is probably 10 years ago, we had a significant substance abuse problem here in Fuquay, drug problem, crack cocaine. And the group of citizens got together and we organized and we became the Fuquay Arena Citizens Against Drugs. And we organized, got our 501c3 nonprofit status. And I was instrumental in writing a grant to the Bureau of Justice. And we received a $500,000 grant from the federal government to come here to Fuquay Arena to address the issues of substance abuse, the issues that were relative to what we call substance abuse treatment, intervention, and prevention. Those are three strategies that were used to deal with the substance abuse problem. So we were working with families. We gave $250,000 to the police department, and then the rest went to prevention and intervention strategies. And some of it happened here at this high school here.
Really?
Yeah. So I think that was for me, as far as a community win, that was very significant because hopefully we did something to impact the drug situation that was here in Fuquay Arena, along with a, a redevelopment plan that helped improve the housing that was here in Fuquay Arena as well.
I would definitely say that it's a great accomplishment and something you definitely should be proud of. And that impact definitely does leave a hurt on families and the environment. And that's a great cause that you looked into.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you.
And last but not least, how do you see the values or lessons you learned that reflected on your own work today?
Well, what I learned was in the whole career in school, one of the things that I think sticks with me most is you have to find what you love to do, and you have to be able to integrate all your different skills, techniques, and desires into forming and shaping that where you can in turn give it back. Whatever you love to do, whatever it is, whatever talent, skills, or gifts that you have, once you discover that, being able to give it back. And again, that gets back to what was reinforced in us that we're just not here for ourselves. We're also here to make a contribution, to give back, to improve society, to make things better. And whatever you can garner or cultivate within yourself as far as personal development or skill set, that's not only for your benefit alone, but it should be shared. It's almost like the idea is you share your wealth. Just don't keep it to yourself because the life that you live, if it doesn't have an impact, then your death won't make a difference. So life should be lived and the journey of life, this is just my personal philosophy, should be lived where you can be in whatever position you're in, you have an opportunity to make the world better or to give back. And I think that as far as school is concerned, that was what was driven into us to do that.
In closing out, if you could walk the halls of Fuquay High School now, what advice would you want to give to teachers and students there?
For me, first, if I could do it again, I would thank my teachers because I wouldn't have made it in today's school because I think about it now, I was sort of hyperactive and the teachers were patient with me. And they always acted as if they saw something in me that at that time I didn't see in myself. And they gave me space. And I think today that's the challenge for the school system is to give students space. And when I say space, I don't mean just physical space. I mean emotional, psychological space so that they can see a child or a student for who they really are. And once they see you for who you really are, there's a level of acceptance. And through that level of acceptance becomes the capacity to really educate. And I see the challenge today from that point. The root word of education, the Latin word is educo, which means to draw out, to pull out. And a lot of times our teachers did that to us. When I said that Miss Bursell would not allow me to accept mediocrity, she was pulling out of me and showing me the potential that I had. And I think if I had to convey that message today to teachers, to students, to whomever, first I would thank those teachers again who helped me. And then I would admonish those teachers to focus on the value and the acceptance of the students who are in their class. Even though they may be different, they come from different backgrounds, but I see each student having value, have a wealth of potential and experiences that are before them, and that in order to move them, those students in that direction, the key would be to accept that student where they are and the potential and the future that lives within them.
And if you could describe our school in one word, why would it be and why?
If I could describe my school,
Yes, sir.
great. I'll just put great. I would say it was great. I enjoyed school. I really enjoyed school. Once I found out why I was there, it took me a while to find out what I enjoyed.
And now I'm closing out. Thank you, Mayor Harris, for sharing your story with us. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to FEHS Legacy Voices. Stay tuned for more alumni stories.
Thank you, Shamania. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Appreciate it.